it doesn't do any good to have those alerts out there if you don't respond appropriately when they're issued. That goes back to having your emergency plan in place and knowing what actions you would take under the different circumstances. And make sure every member of the household is also aware of how those plans will go, so you're not wondering what the rest of your household will be doing during those events.
The peak tornado season in Kansas runs from April to June, with the state averaging 95 tornadoes per year, but has seen up to 187. In addition, Kansas experiences damaging winds, large hail, and both general and flash flooding during the spring and summer. On today's Sound Living, severe weather preparedness. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wickman. Kansas State University Assistant State Climatologist Mary Knapp, who produces Weather Wonders, a weekly series on all things weather-related, says that now is the time to prepare a plan for what you'll do when severe weather alerts are issued. Mary, as we move closer to spring, the possibilities for severe weather increases, and Severe Weather Preparedness Week is something that reminds everyone of the things that they should be doing and things that they need to be prepared for.
Right. The National Weather Service has these every year, and this year they're focusing on a different topic each day of the week, and it starts out with the preparedness component. One of the things they recommend highly is that people review their plans and make sure everything is still in place. This would be the time where you would check your safety kit, make sure that you have the emergency supplies you might need, that everything is still current, that you don't have some out-of-date products in there, and just review that everything is good with that. Also, it's a good time to go over with your friends and family the plans that you have in place for each of the different kinds of weather events, whether that might be a tornado alert, a power outage, it may be that you're talking about wind or flooding, and just check off, do we have the plans in place for this, and what would we do if that occurred?
Nice to have the preparation. Also a good opportunity to practice those plans.
Right. It's also a good opportunity to verify that your method of getting that information is still working. Check your weather radio. Make sure that you can receive the alerts inside the location that you will be staying. If you've got a storm shelter or a safe room that you go to, make sure that you still get that reception. If you have not done so already, check out signing up for the emergency alerts that may be offered by your county emergency preparedness office. Here in Manhattan, K-State also has an alert system that you can sign up online for. You can get it emailed to you. You can get it sent to your phone, and you can have as many as 3 phones registered for that alert system. So just review those. The other thing would be to have a transistor radio or something of that nature so that if you need to, you can still get the alerts and updated information from the broadcast media. Again, in Manhattan, they quite frequently collaborate and join forces when they are doing the weather alert. They do a pool, and so everybody gets that information out as quickly as possible.
And very important to have a number of ways to get those alerts because you never know what will be coming through and what won't be coming through.
Right, and you don't know which information source might be cut off. For example, if it's a windstorm and there's damage to the cell towers, your cell phone may not have reception any longer. If you have internet and your power goes out, you may lose that connectivity. If you have satellite or cable television, again, the possibility of losing that connectivity increases when you're in severe weather. So a backup transistor radio can be the most reliable method to continue getting that information as needed.
And the sirens, while they do give more advance notice than they used to now, still that's kind of more for people who are outdoors.
Right. People think of the tornado sirens, and they will be testing that on the 2nd of March. But those sirens are specifically designed for outdoor alerts. Most houses have enough soundproofing that you're not going to hear that siren indoors. The other alert systems that are tied in will also be working with those sirens. So if you have cable TV, the emergency broadcast system will interrupt your program with those alerts, just as the sirens are sounding outdoors. Your other methods of getting information, such as the weather radio or your text messaging system, will also send out the alerts. So this is a way of confirming that your conduit of information is still working properly. In Kansas, we do the tornado warning checks every month, usually the first Monday of the month, unless there's actually severe weather in the works. But then again, it is a chance for you to review your alert system and make sure that it's still functioning properly.
And when we get these alerts, we want to take action.
Right. It doesn't do any good to have those alerts out there if you don't respond appropriately when they're issued. So again, that goes back to having your emergency plan in place and knowing what actions you would take under the different circumstances. For example, if there's a tornado warning, have you planned what would happen if you're at work, if the kids are at school, if you are out at the playground? How would you respond in those various situations? And make sure every member of the household is also aware of how those plans will go, so you're not wondering what the rest of your household will be doing during those events.
We think a lot about tornadoes because of Kansas. We do have a number of tornadoes, but that's not always what we need to prepare for. There are a lot of other things that are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous.
Right. Tornadoes are the biggies that everybody pays attention to, but the other dangers can be as deadly. Lightning is one, and that's one that frequently is underrated as far as the danger that occurs. There's over 25 million lightning strikes on an annual basis in the United States, and there tend to be, on average, 47 lightning fatalities in a given year. So it can be quite deadly. And in the earlier days of records, the majority of deaths and injuries were due to work, people that were out farming or working in the forest or things like that. Now it's switched to recreational activities, people that are out on the soccer field, out hiking or boating. And again, we really want to watch those weather safety rules. If you can hear that thunder, the lightning's close enough to cause problems, and you should seek shelter. And that shelter would be an indoor facility, not, say, a overhang or a picnic shelter with open sides where that lightning bolt can still penetrate.
And there's a reason why when people are outdoors playing ball games, for instance, when they see lightning off in the distance, there's a reason for that delay.
Right, because the lightning can strike quite a far distance from the center of the storm. So the delay is set so that you have 30 minutes between strikes within a certain proximity. And due to modern technology, most sports venues are equipped with lightning detectors so they can see just how close those strikes are and how frequently they are occurring and when they may have moved far enough out to no longer be an issue. And that can be sometimes annoying if there's a 29-minute break between the last strike and the next one. Well, the clock starts over again with that 29th minute when you have another strike.
And you want to be the lowest target? Is that the idea for lightning?
For lightning, what you want to do is crouch to the ground, sort of like you're forming your body like a cannonball, as if you were jumping in the swimming pool. You want to be a low target, but you want to have as little of your body exposed to the ground surface as possible, because that lightning charge can move through the ground, particularly if it's wet ground. So a crouching position, grabbing your knees and hunkering down. If you cannot get to shelter, that's the best thing. Another way is to get into your car, because the frame of the car will conduct the charge away and around the cavity of the car, and you can have some protection from that rather than being out in the open.
Another thing we encounter is hail and wind. What are some safety tips there?
Well, a couple of things to keep in mind. Hail can be very, very dangerous. If you're driving and run into a hailstorm, get off the road. Don't try and seek shelter on the edges of the road unless there's no other way. Certainly don't try and congregate under an overpass seeking shelter. That just creates a bottleneck and increases the likelihood of a traffic accident along with that. As far as wind goes, tornadoes get the bulk of the publicity, if you will, but straight-line winds can be every bit as strong and as dangerous. They can blow over trees, break limbs, down power lines, and all of those without having the rotation that marks a tornado.
What about in terms of flood safety then, because that is another big issue, and there's a couple of types of flooding, general and flash.
Right. The general ones are usually in close proximity to bodies of water. So we're talking about rivers or lakes. As the waters rise, then you start getting those general flooding. They tend to be persistent. They will take a while for the waters to rise enough to be a problem, but they also can take a long time for those waters to recede. Believe it or not, Tuttle Creek Lake is still slightly into flood pool from the rains that we saw last spring. So again, it can persist for some time. Some of the problems that might show up with those persistent flooding would be undermining of road surfaces. So you want to be very, very cautious to make sure that that road that you're driving on is still as sound as you think it is. Flash flooding, by its very nature, is a rapid event. It can happen very, very quickly, in a matter of minutes, literally. And it also tends to dissipate just as quickly. So if it comes up really rapidly, it may go down in the same manner. One of the dangers with flash flooding is that it can occur in areas that aren't typically thought of as being flood zones. So it may be a wave of water coming off of a parking lot that floods an intersection. It maybe the drainage ditches, the storm sewer system is overwhelmed and you have street flooding. Those can still be deadly. And again, it doesn't take as much water as you might think for it to have enough force to sweep you off your feet or to move your car and lift it and move it away.
The other thing that's difficult is really knowing just how deep the water is.
Right. It's difficult to view how deep it is, and it's also difficult to see what the condition of the roadway underneath that water surface is as well. So, again, that's another problem. The caution from the National Weather Service is turn around, don't drown. If there's water over the roadway, wait for it to subside or find an alternate route.
Do we have any information yet on what we might expect this spring and summer?
Well, our spring outlook was released from the Climate Prediction Center, and it forecasts for the spring, March, April, May, to be warmer and drier than normal. Keep in mind that means the 3-month average is likely to be warmer and drier than normal. It does not preclude a storm event that would drop a lot of water in a very short time and produce those flooding risks that we've talked about. It doesn't mean that it'll be completely dry. It just may not reach the level that we would expect on a typical spring season.
And what we really want people to be aware of is just making that plan, being prepared, and knowing that in Kansas, the weather can change just like that.
Right. As we've seen in February, we can go from a frigid Arctic outbreak to mild summer weather in a matter of days, and the reverse is also possible. So you can start out the day with a nice, clear, sunny sky and end up with a severe thunderstorm, hail, high winds, and flooding.
That's Kansas State University Assistant State Climatologist Mary Knapp with information on being prepared for severe weather season. Additional safety measures can be found online at weather.gov. And for weather information specific to Kansas, visit Kansas Mesonet at mesonet.ksu.edu. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wickman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.